Hi, Misha here, and I love Joe Biden. Don't you? We all love Joe Biden. That's what it means, right? Yeah, I mean, if you don't like someone, you must like the other person. So, with that out of the way, now the outragers will have left. Let's talk. People have asked me about the sanction, which isn't really a sanction. No, not really. On Russian firearms and Russian ammunition that was announced, although it's not in effect yet, on August 20th, 2021, Friday. All the best announcements out of DC always come on Fridays. For example, when it was announced many moons ago we were going off the gold standard, they announced that on a Friday afternoon because they know people are going to be so in love with the info that they need the whole weekend to celebrate, right? Honest to God, if you think that I love what Biden does and this news doesn't upset me, have we met? Obviously not. You know, last year I did some Blackbox videos on the whole election situation. And it seems like then people confused me looking into a situation and conveying the results that I found personally, and me just trying to read part of a civics book to people about the Electoral College and how it works. They confuse those things with my own personal hopes, dreams, and wishes and jerk-off material. No, that's not how research works. As I joked online, you know, if Century Arms sent me one of the old Viscas, VSAKs, or VSKAs, what a stupid name. Anyway, if Century sent me one and we reviewed it, and if it actually worked, and it actually held headspace, I would be intellectually, ethically obligated to report the positive review, even if it's not what I wanted and or expected. That's kind of how a lot of things panned out last year and the beginning of this year. And I'm preambling that because this whole situation relates in. So, it's been reported that the U.S. government, State Department, Treasury, Customs, will no longer allow Russian firearms and Russian ammunition into America. This is a problem because a big chunk of our ammo here is from Russia, and 99% of our plinking ammo and the cheapest ammo is from Russia. Meaning, just about the time ammo was starting to come back down, now the cheap plinking stuff is potentially gone forever. So what's up? Well, this is in response to a couple of events. As you know, there was the poisoning of Alexei Navalny. And, okay, some people want to say alleged and all that. Fine, fair. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a doctor. What I can say is it was actually the Germans who said they detected poison. The poisoning actually happened earlier on British soil when he was on a trip. And the test results from studying Navalny's hospital visit in Berlin were ostensibly verified by French and Swedish chemists. So we have 3 or 4 different European nations crying foul here. Also, the nerve agent that they claimed was used on him is something the KGB, which is transformed into the FSB following the disillusionment of the USSR, was known to use back in the Cold War period. So kind of one of their signature drugs. So take that as you will, but let's be honest, Russia's track record with poisonings, assassinations, and all of that isn't stellar. And the funny thing is, years ago during the Cold War, that was a given. If you said, oh, Russian KGB agents poisoned someone, no one would be surprised. So who is he? Why does this matter? Well, that's where I do actually disagree. Frankly, personal opinion, I figure, yeah, either Putin did it, ordered it, or one of Putin's underlings did it without his direct knowledge, but knowing it would help him out. Because Alexei, well, he's an opposition leader. He started off as an online blogger. He's an investigative journalist, at least ostensibly. He's kind of the gadfly that has been calling foul, calling corruption, calling embezzlement, calling, taking Russia's resources for Putin and his cronies. Honest to God, he's kind of one of those people that might fit in well in the USA, because we tend to like those guys who point out the corruption in Washington, D.C. Regardless, after starting off as kind of just an annoyance for Putin, he decided to become an opposition candidate, running for the mayor of Moscow, amongst other things. And just generally speaking, yeah, he's been accused of protesting and arrested for that. And I know a lot of Americans got upset when people got arrested for protesting in recent years. So, there is that to be considered. But, there's a right way and a wrong way to protest, so not getting into that. Basically, he's Putin's opposition. That has made him a target, because Putin controls Russia. Russia likes strongmen. It always has. It dabbled in democracy a time or two back in 1917 and then again in the 1990s with Yeltsin. But to be honest, Russia likes its strongmen. And people might not love Putin wholly there, but they do respect him. And a lot of times respect is more appreciated than love in Russia. The thing is, he was poisoned. There's that. It's definitely not internationally accepted. Now, he recovered, and he went back to Russia this year into prison. He had been accused of basically a few different crimes, including what we would think of as rabble-rousing, and basically just being a political opponent without all the proper yada-yada. But he did go to prison, which I remember when he went back to Russia and turned himself in, my wife and I were kind of darkly laughing and wondering why in the world he didn't exile himself in Germany. Now, of course, I know why. It's part of his mystique. But he walked into the lion's den. It's been a whole back and forth thing. We don't need to get into that. That's who it is. Do I think Putin acted underhanded? Yes, I do. Do I think it was even illegal? Certainly on moral grounds. However, where I do disagree, this is yet another instance of America playing world's policeman, because that's working out so well in Afghanistan. We actually levied some sanctions against 7 individuals in Russia tied to the poisoning earlier back in March, but this really didn't target anything to do with firearms. There is also the matter of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, the Russian-German gas pipeline. This has been another political hot potato, and actually this is the primary cause of the latest round of sanctions according to Russia today. They acknowledge the poisoning was a factor, but basically you have 2 things coming. It's just which one do you think is more effective? Well, it doesn't really matter. The pipeline, the U.S. claims that it'll give Russia control and turn Germany into Russia's puppet, and it'll cut out Ukraine, making Ukraine less important. Germany argues, hey, this is just a commercial venture. It's actually a Swiss-German company primarily building the pipeline, although several Russian naval ships, not military, but just, commercial merchant ships, are being used to lay it. So, yeah. At the end of the day, the pipeline is essentially done. It's due to kind of go into initial operations later this month. It's done, it's dusted, and again, while it might give Russia a political bargaining chip, America wants Ukraine to retain the gas pipeline into Europe for political measures. Again, America trying to be world police. It's not going to work. It's not going to matter. And I do get a little bit of "I told you so" from this. I won't lie. Back when I was in university and grad school, everyone was studying Farsi and everyone was studying the Middle East because 9/11 had just happened and we were going into Iraq and we'd already been in Afghanistan for a couple of years. I was always interested in Russia, but people had this attitude then of, oh, Russia's is gone, the Cold War's over. And at that time, Russia's economy really hit a low point around 98. But even 2001, 2002, 2003, it was still very much recovering. And at that point, Putin was just serving his first term as president after Yeltsin, and it wasn't considered that big of a deal. People thought Russia was just out of the game, and I was trying to tell them, look, they're down, but they're not out. They're going to be back. They're going to rebuild. They're going to get their economy back. Putin's not going to relinquish the leadership. And years later, here we are. It is a relevant nation because it is a powerful nation. It has nuclear weapons and all that good stuff. So that's kind of my take on that since people asked. I don't think the poisoning was right. That's not the way to handle political opposition, at least not unless you're like in 16th century Ottoman Empire. But it is what it is. That's Russia's kind of deal. We really, the U.S., the CIA has done some pretty iffy things. So people that live in glass houses, right? So moving forward, the first sanctions against Russia. Russia had been, it's been rocky. At the end of the Cold War, 91, things were good as far as firearms coming in from Russia. In 94, Russia voluntarily signed a bilateral agreement on the exportation of military firearms. And there were several exemptions in that. Ironically, one thing they forgot to put in there was SVTs, so they got banned accidentally. Well, not banned, but Russia said they wouldn't export them. This is why things like Makarovs and Tokarevs stopped coming too. But they would allow sport or hunting guns. So you saw hunting-type shotguns, and eventually the hunting version of the Sega and the Vepr come in. And more importantly, ammo was flowing in from Russia. In fact, the first 5.45 came in around 95, 96. And things were good for a while. And after the sunset of the assault weapons ban in September, October of 2004, things started to get even better. We could have features again. And then in 2008, Arsenal introduced the SGL-10, which was one of the first kind of military-style Segas. And then just a few months later, they released the SGL-20 at the end of 2008. That was a more or less fully militarized Sega, and things got better. We got the 31s and 5.45. By the way, the 20 and 21s were in 7.62x39. And then, of course, fixed stock models were also complemented by side folders. And these took high-capacity mags, and things were really good for a while. Now, the first ammo ban came around 2011, 2012. I can't remember which year it was, for the 7.6 ban. And that's because it had been classified as armor-piercing ammo. And it was perfectly okay to import armor-piercing ammo as long as it was only used in long arms, rifles, but not pistols. This is why companies like Century never tried to import a 5.45 Draco from Romania, because if you had a pistol on the books firing the cartridge, it would get sanctioned because it wasn't allowed based on the current law. Well, unfortunately, IO asked for approval to import a 5.45 Onyx out of Poland made by FB Radom. And the gun was approved, But eventually this led to them realizing that now there was a 5.45 gun on the books, therefore armor-piercing ammo could not be imported. This was the 7.6 ban. And at the time, people kind of conflated this to say, oh, 5.45 was banned from import. No, as it turned out, commercial stuff like Wolf or Tula or the Bears could still be imported because it wasn't considered armor-piercing. It wasn't 7.6 specifically. So ammo continued, Segas continued. Then we got a new line of Vepers in the FM series from Molat. But then, in March of 2014, a round of sanctions was applied to Russia because of the Crimea, the conflict there. Not getting into the politics of that, you can look it up. Russia came in and basically took back Crimea, claiming that people voted there to secede from Ukraine and they wanted to join Russia again, yada yada. The U.S. didn't like that. International law violations. To be fair, not entirely dissimilar to the Kuwait-Iraq situation in 1990, which led to the Gulf War in 1991. So in March, they passed general sanctions, and then in June, Kalashnikov Concern, formerly Izhmash, formerly Izhevsk, was added to the list of sanctioned companies. So this ban didn't actually ban the Sega or the SGL. It actually prohibited American companies from doing business with Kalashnikov Concern, effectively banning the gun. True. Now, the U.S. was not the first to do this. In fact, Canada, the UK, the rest of Europe were all sanctioning Russia. So we were just going along with NATO allies. Some before us. Not actually, we were kind of middle of the pack, or even a little bit late to the game. So that's where things stood. No more Segas, and no more 7.6 ammo. In 2015, though, the Molat Vepers kind of took over, and they did really well. This is our FM series, FM 47, FM 74. They were doing great. They were doing really, really good. And of course, this is during the Obama administration. And, you know, the blame for all this gets rightly placed on Obama. 2016, Trump beats Hillary in quite the upset for a lot of people that were just so sure Trump had it lost and Hillary had it in the bag. But either way, 2017 rolls around and Trump takes office, and, you know, it is what it is. There's talk of the Hearing Safe Act. But in June again of that year, there's another round of sanctions, or rather, more Russian companies are added to the list of already sanctioned companies there. And this time, Molat, maker of the Veper, was added to the list. This banned the whole FM series and others. That was our two primary Russian importers, kind of what we had. After that, we really haven't seen any guns of note out of Russia. And my point there is, whoop-de-doo with them saying they're banning the importation of firearms from Russia, that's already effectively done. But ammunition and some parts have been more of the big deal over the past 4 years or so. And that's where it really hurts us, because Russian ammo was a cheap source and of reasonably good quality for what it was. Wolf especially, kind of my favorite. Tula I've had mixed results with, although in their 7.62 by 39, they're not as bad as like their 223. I also like them for Makarov 9x18 ammo, and so on. And so now we get to today. What this sanction says is that firearms, which it doesn't really matter, and ammunition, the State Department, not the ATF, mind you, this isn't really what the ATF does. They're not really anything to do with this directly. They're no longer going to approve new Form 6s. Now, when you import guns, parts, ammunition, you have to file the appropriate paperwork, and depending on what it is, get the appropriate approval from the government. And they don't really have to ban anything. They could just not approve the paperwork. Kind of file it in the trash can. This is what JDI, Dave Wagner, was kind of warning about late last year and early this year. And this is really what was happening all throughout 2020. People would put in applications to import this gun or that gun, and they wouldn't get a rejection, but they wouldn't get a go-ahead either, meaning nothing happened. It got stuck in limbo, which effectively banned it, prohibited it from coming in. And things did loosen up. They did start to approve stuff, but there was about a 6-month period when they weren't approving jack shit last year. And that was scary and frustrating for a lot of people. Well, now they're basically saying we are not going to approve any forms to import ammunition out of Russia. But they really just mean new forms. And they're saying, instead of going into effect immediately, that this will go into effect on September 7, although that's really immaterial. Again, there's no reason that they have to hurry up and approve things. However, companies that already have open approval for importation, at this time it seems like we'll continue to be able to import what's already been approved or what's in the pipeline. And the way imports typically work, you're imported to approve for so much time or so much product, and then whichever number is met first, either the time runs out or you've imported your max number of product, then you have to apply for new forms. So depending on when manufacturers applied for importation, they should still be able to bring it in for the next 6 months or even year. And if they were smart, because of the ammo shortage we've had and the crunch and the desirability, importers have been getting the word out, ordering and getting permission to import huge quantities of ammo. So it's not like on September 7th, the ammo is just going to stop coming in. But it is on a timer. It is on life support. Now, the caveats, it said if Russia meets certain criteria, changes certain things, in 12 months they will review the sanctions and perhaps lift them. Now, I want to say this is what's kind of interesting too. This round of sanctions in August, it's primarily against 9 individuals, state actors and otherwise, that are credited with the poisoning. It's also against a couple of Russian agencies, including a couple of chemical factories, including one that used to be owned by the KGB, was started by the KGB, and now belongs to the FSB. It's interesting to me, you can see the connection there. If a person's accused of poisoning, you might sanction the makers of said poison. Okay, fair, whatever. But how guns and ammo get roped into it, that's certainly them just taking a target of opportunity and doing something they wanted to do all along. And again, now, look to this. That's what people like Dave have said they're going to do. Because the thing about imports, when it comes to the domestic guns, manufacturing, selling, ownership, we have some protection under the Second Amendment, under U.S. law, under the courts, what have you. There is recourse. Like, for example, with the bump stocks. That's actually working its way through court right now. Even though the Trump administration banned them in 2018, it's being fought in court and the results aren't all that bad. However, with imports, we have no rights. Access to imports is a privilege, and one that the government can deny and not really have to justify itself. They can just do it. And there's no real way to take it in front of court. There's no way to challenge this in court as there would be with something like the bump stock ban. When it comes into trades and tariff, there's nothing we can do because that's international, and again, we have no rights to this anyway. What we get in from the other countries, it's just by the grace of the U.S. government, and that is a terrifying statement. And this is why we've always said on the main channel, when it comes to imports, get them while you can. Now, typically we're talking about ammunition or parts, guns or parts kits, but it does apply to ammunition, magazines, and spare parts themselves, because any of that can be shut off without very much of a rhyme or reason, and that's what we're seeing here. So yeah, the only silver lining is current permits that are already outstanding, already arranged, should be allowed to run their course. Should be. I will remind you, this is Friday, I'm recording it, this just happened, I'm doing it because people asked my opinion. I haven't had really any time to research, and we haven't really had time to let this run the course. I will say that if you look at the normal major news sources, whichever direction, right or left, they're not really talking about this. This is a footnote. The big news is really the argument over the German-Russian pipeline, frankly, because that involves multiple nations, several Russian vessels, several international companies, and it kind of, pits Germany against the U.S., but it's a whole situation of a lot of air blowing and hot air and, frankly, political bullshit and posturing. And, of course, the sanctioning of individuals is kind of interesting, and the accusations of poisoning and, the different takes on different people over there and who said, and all these people getting in prison. But that's Russian affair, not American affair. So what are we going to do about ammo? Well, 5.56 is certainly made here and is made in plenty of foreign countries. In fact, I don't actually have a lot of Russian-made 5.56. But the nice thing the Russian ammo did for 5.56, it was a cheap alternative that kind of kept the market in check. The same thing goes for 9x19 NATO Luger Parabellum. The cheap Russian stuff kind of kept everything else in check. Same thing goes for 308. So that, you'll see an ammo rise in price and probably ammo shortages. But yeah, 7.62x39. For right now, we're probably going to have some crunch time. But again, that stuff is made in other nations. In fact, I've got some Cellar and Bellot out there that I've been shooting more than Wolf lately anyway, which is nice. I like the Cellar and Bellot stuff. But the good news is lots of nations manufacture 7.62x39, and it wouldn't be terribly difficult for a competent American company to tool up and make it either. Luckily, Remington UMC is back up in production here in Arkansas and turning out ammo. They're not doing 7.62x39 at the moment, but they could. So, it's annoying and scary, but I think we'll be okay. And the good thing is there are tons of guns that fire that cartridge, not just AKs, but you have things like Ruger Mini 30s. You've even got AR-15s that fire 7.62x39. One that concerns me a little more, and it's a niche round that not a lot of people necessarily own, is 9x18 Makarov. There aren't a lot of countries still using Makarov that import ammo, and Russia was kind of our major source of that. Now the good news is, a lot, 250, 300 rounds of Makarov will probably last me and a lot of people several range trips, because it's not one of those things you're going to go blast through hundreds of rounds of in a day. But still, I really like shooting Makarov, and so I'll have to start looking kind of who's the best alternative out there. The problem is a lot of the nations that used to use it have switched over to 9x19 Parabellum, and so Makarov's kind of getting left in the dust. Of course, the elephant in the room, the one that's definitely the most impacted, 5.45x39. And this is that other place I can kind of say, not just myself, but we told you so. Back the last couple of years, usually in May and April and May, do videos on the future of 5.45, and people will say, oh, it's not dead, it's a happening caliber, and they would say, well, it's cheap ammo compared to like what 223 is doing. The problem was it was a sole source ammo. It was all coming out of Russia, and the reason it was cheap is people were buying it in great numbers. But that was a vulnerability. You have an imported gun, you have an imported ammo. That always scared me a bit. And again, I've been a 5.45 user and shooter for 20 years. I've seen it become hard to get, available, cheap, and everything. I owned my first gun well before even 7 and 6 came out. And a lot of people did get out of 5.45 when the 7 and 6 ban happened 10 years ago. But still yet, it's had a bit of a resurgence the last year or two. But with Russian ammo gone, the price will go way up. It's no longer going to be 30-ish cents around. It's going to be 60, 70, even more around easily. The problem is there aren't very many nations that still use that cartridge. Chinese ammo is sanctioned, has been for a long time. Russian ammo is now sanctioned. Some people have suggested Ukraine. That's not likely. Ukrainian ammo is actually kind of sanctioned too because of the whole Crimea situation, and they kind of need all the ammo they can get anyway right now. So Ukraine is not really a likely source. Poland hasn't made or cared about 5.45 in a generation. Serbia, former Yugoslavia, never adopted it. Egypt never adopted it, and we don't really get anything out of Egypt anyway. Finland, who actually would be kind of a fun source for some 60x39 if it wasn't so god-awful expensive, never used 5.45. Hungary never used 5.45. The only real hope, and it's honestly a pretty good hope, is Romania. Not only have they issued 5.45, they still issue it today. And Century Arms, under the Red Army Standard brand, has a good tie for ammo. Of course, they import all the future guns anyway. So that's our best bet, is for Century, if they want to. That's the thing with Century. Don't ever trust them to be logical and make good decisions, guys. They should order a bunch of ammo from Romania, but that's going to take time, assuming they haven't done it already. Hopefully, they put in for their forms and got approval weeks or months ago, and they'll have it coming in. But if not, it'll take them 6 months to a year to get a batch in, at least a large enough batch to really help everyone, meaning we could fill a deficit from the Russian ammo. But keep in mind, too, if there are open import permits to bring over the 5.45 from Russia, it'll be flowing for a while, so it might not be as bad as you think. However, I think it highlights the vulnerability of that cartridge. I don't feel like American makers are going to tool up to do it. Some people have brought up the idea of Hornady doing it. I don't think that's realistic. They had some issues with their domestically produced 5.45 anyway, and it was always kind of expensive, more match grade stuff. I just wouldn't look to Hornady for good plinking 5.45. Could be wrong, but you know, people ask my opinion, and that's what these here black boxes are. So my opinion, Romania. But I think this has highlighted just how risky it is, and I think this will be kind of the end of the PSA Palmetto State PSA K74. They were already having problems with them, not just mine and not just a few others, but several. With this news, I would be very interested to hear who's still game to buy one. I can understand people still wanting to get an actual import like a Sega or a Vepr or an Arsenal, you know, the whole former Combat Factory military style. But a lot of people, the lure for 5.45 was reasonably priced ammo and something different. But when they're not sure if they can just run out and get it anytime they want, and it might cost 50, 60, 70, even $1 a round, yeah, I I think that might just be, too many hits against the PSA 74 to keep it going. We'll see. Again, could be wrong. It'll also be interesting to see what Riley Defense does. They've been producing their 74s in small numbers over the last year. Of course, Kalashnikov USA has not done a 545 yet. They're sticking with 7.62 by 39. And that kind of brings me to another thing. People have kind of asked, how's this going to affect the AK market in general? I don't think a whole lot. There might be some odd fluctuations one way or the other. Some people will look at it like, well, they just banned ammo. They could ban guns next, so buy all the guns. Well, as other people will look at it saying, well, they banned the ammo. I can't get ammo from my gun. I don't need my gun anymore. Sell it. The thing is, this affects ammo across the board. Even if you didn't shoot Russian 223, Russian 556, its sheer presence on the market kept everything else in check. Without it, you see what I mean? That said, when I heard about this today, the sanctions, I was in no way shocked. In fact, part of me has actually been a little amazed that it took this long. The fact is, Russia is flexing its muscles. The U.S. is not in a great position. A clusterfuck war in Afghanistan, a war in Iraq that didn't go much better, subservience to China and, all that, loosening ties with Europe, kind of more tremulous allies, the most turbulent election in history, at least barring anything in the Civil War, accusations left and right, protests in cities, COVID. It's made America look vulnerable. And to be fair, we've behaved like we're vulnerable. In fact, we've behaved ridiculously the last few years. And to someone like Putin, he's seizing an opportunity to pull Russia, and more importantly himself, up onto the world stage again. And frankly, doing quite an impressive and competent job at it. However, one thing, side note, Russia has basically made the COVID-19 vaccine mandatory. Putin is going to start levying fines to individuals if they don't get the vaccine by September. I can give you more exact data. I'm just mentioning it off the top of my head. I found that interesting. So don't for a moment think that Russia is some bastion of freedom and democracy and, do your own thing. It is not, guys. It's a dictatorship. If Putin likes someone, like he did like Trump, things go well. And that's good. But if he doesn't like someone, like Alexei, they don't go well. And if Trump thinks something is good, fine. In America, people can, follow or not follow, what have you. Same with us with Biden. We still have that freedom to pick and choose, no matter Trump or Biden as president. But in Russia, you better fall lockstep in line with Putin and just hope that what he's decided is the right course is the right course. Because like with this COVID vaccine, what if you don't want to get the vaccine? What if you don't trust it? Well, in Russia, tough fucking titties. And, I have a feeling if people don't take the hint, pay their fines, and get the vaccine, they're going to mysteriously come down with a case of COVID later on. You know what I mean? Wink, wink. So, yeah. I guess my thing about Putin, personally, I do have to respect that he's a competent and quite clever and very strong leader. But a fan of democracy, he is not. And I do find this whole shift interesting. The group of people in America that were once just terribly anti-Soviet during the Cold War, the conservative group, are now kind of pro-Putin, which would have just mortified their fathers. They would have been called pinkos, which were the liberals back in the day. It's so weird. I don't know if I'm conveying that correctly, but it blows my head how things have changed so much. But as you know, I lived in Russia. I love Russia. And it's a great place, and I really like the people. And I like how straightforward and kind of blunt they are. And, you know, they've had harder lives, and they kind of cut through the bullshit over there. And I like that. There's not all this fluff, and there's certainly not the coddling nature. There's not a snowflake culture over there. And SJWs need not apply. It's a thing, and if you've been over there, I hope you probably know what I mean. If you haven't, it's interesting. Definitely look into it. Find some really good documentaries, and I mean, they can be on the Great Patriotic War, they can be on Russia's own Afghan war, whatnot, or even the 1990s after the fall of communism and how that hit the country. Quite interesting times, all in all. Yeah, anyway, like I said, back to America. This isn't a research video. This is just a Blackbox stream of consciousness rambling. But that's kind of where we're at right now. It's tragic, but it's in no way, shape, or form surprising. And honest to God, if Trump were our president still, I'm not sure we would be in much of a different position. The poisoning, the pipeline, those were very much underway last year. So we'd still be in that position. And Trump's track record with firearms-related stuff, again, the 2017 sanction on Molat happened in his term. Now, some would say, well, that's leftover from Obama's administration. Fair enough. That happened 5 months into Trump's administration. However, this round of sanctions happened 7 months into Biden's. So, if we let Trump off the hook for Molat sanction, if we're being honest, we gotta let Biden off too. Or we can just both, give them credit or blame because they were the manager in charge at the time. It's like at any work. If something bad happens at work, even if the manager didn't have a direct handle on it, hey, it happened under his watch. And on top of that, I'll be honest, I'm still salty about the whole bump stock thing, how that went down under Trump. So to my mind, his track record with firearms stuff is just not great. Now, is it better than Biden's? Yeah. However, that's not setting the bar very high, guys. In fact, that's barely a speed bump. Biden's track record for firearms is about as poor as you can get. It's even worse than, I was going to say worse than Obama. Boy, I don't know. Let's not even go down that road. Let's say this. It's worse than Bernie Sanders. Biden has a worse track record than Bernie Sanders as far as firearms. Obama, I don't know. But, yeah, Hillary, I don't know. But, yeah, Trump is better. But let's be honest, most of what Trump did when it comes to firearms was lip service, guys. It was ass kissing. Let's be honest with ourselves, please. We need to be that way. And then I will close with this. These are just my opinions. If we agree, fine. If we don't, that's fine too. I think more than anything else, that's what discourages me about what's been going on. People can't have differing opinions anymore and still remain friends. They act like if someone has a different opinion than they have, that they're being called out, that they're being ridiculed. No. I have family and friends that voted Biden and are very liberal. I have family and friends that voted Trump and are very conservative. We can still sit down and have Thanksgiving together and, not throw punches until at least the third or fourth beer. No, really, seriously, we get along fine. Because it's just politics. It's not personal. And none of this is either. It's just what it is. And I'm bringing this up because if We have no advocates in Washington, D.C., let's be honest. The Republicans only talk about guns, the Second Amendment, every 2, 4, 6 years, coincidentally, right about the time they need votes for re-election. As soon as they get those votes, they mysteriously fade away. And we've had times when Republicans have had control of both Congress and the White House, and heck, even the judiciary, the Supreme Court. And mysteriously, all these evil gun laws that liberals have passed don't go away. So either the Republicans are too weak or unwilling, or they're in bed with, they're secretly collaborating with the Democrats behind closed doors to chip away at Second Amendment rights. And really, of the two possibilities, does it matter which is the real case? Because the end result is the same. Every decade that goes by, we lose more and more. They're not our allies. We cannot count on them. They're like a deadbeat father or that spouse that keeps, flirting with other people or even cheating on you, then promising they won't ever do it again. You can't count on Republicans to protect us on these things because they have it in the past. And just because the Democrats are worse when it comes to the Second Amendment doesn't automatically make the other ones good. I don't have an answer for this, guys. I wish I did. I don't. But just because someone's wrong doesn't make the other person automatically right. I think we're faced with the situation of we've got two wrongs, and they sure as shit aren't making a right. One of them might be a little more wrong than the other, but, what kind of game is that? We're comparing crap or shit type situation. And my thing is, our community, firearms ownership, cannot stand to be divided. We can't argue over this or that. It really is time to put bygones behind us. Whatever happened, whatever disagreements we might have had, right or wrong on either side, we need to move forward. It's time to move forward, because if we don't, more stuff is going to happen. We have to look to the midterm elections coming up. That's our only chance to reverse some of this jazz. And it's sad, because we need to be unified. We really do. And if we keep getting divided more and more, there's going to be more bans, more sanctions. Next time it won't just be Russian guns and ammo. It'll be Swiss or Polish or, heaven forbid, Romanian. If Romanian stuff gets banned, forget about it. AKs and AK ammo is over. We still have a lot we can lose. We have to be together on this, because I hope at the end of the day we all have the same basic values of the Second Amendment, freedom, freedom to live our lives the way we want. I've always had the attitude that everyone's free to do whatever they want to do, as long as they don't impact their neighbor's equal right to do the same. I mean, it's a very libertarian point of view. I guess that's what I am. But that's what I think this is all about. And I and you deserve the right to have firearms, because not only are we not hurting anyone, it's a very positive experience. Going out and plinking with friends, it's a very special thing to me and to you too. And to the gum grabbers, I guess they'll never understand that. And there's lots of things they probably enjoy that we'll never understand. Not to get into things, or YouTube might get cranky, but I think you know what I mean. I'll be honest with you, it was a shit day today. This was only one of a couple of pieces of bad news I had, and it is exhausting, and I'm glad it's the weekend, guys. So, what to do? First, don't panic. No reason to, won't do any good. Second, don't panic buy all the ammo you can find. I know that's not going to work, because everyone's already done it. Ammo sold out within 30 minutes or an hour when the news dropped. But that is the last thing we need to do, because that's just going to drain the pipeline any faster. And that means you're going to have people with 50 or 100,000 rounds sitting on it, never doing anything with it, and then selling it for $1,000 a case on GunBroker. I think it would much be more fair for everyone to have a shot at having 2, 3, 5,000 rounds for personal use. But, you know, that's just kind of how capitalism works. People with the early bird mentality and the money to buy are the ones that are going to do, and you're always going to have hoarders. And I don't know. I don't have a solution. I really don't, guys. Maybe after all this COVID bullshit and just everything else, I'm just tired. I don't know about you, but good grief, I'm just tired of fighting, and I'm tired of having to watch out, see who's going to fuck me over from behind next time. You know what I mean? Boy, it'd just be good to have some good news. Wake up tomorrow and say, hey, they did away with the NFA, or they opened up the machine gun registry, or I know it won't happen, but good God, we need to win. We really do. Anyway, guys, so I did this video because people asked. Again, it's a stream of consciousness. I'll do it. I'll try to do a more research and thoughtful one later, but I really do care about our community and everyone out there. And I just, God, I hate this. I really do. It's something that's so important to me, and people that are so important to me, and it's just, it isn't fair. It isn't right. But, you know, that's life when you're a fucking adult. It's not fair, and oftentimes it's not right. But the best thing we can do is stick with it together, hang together, you know. So with that, I sincerely have best wishes to everyone out there. Hope everyone can have a restful weekend. If I can help you at all, shoot me an email, hook me, you know, if I can do anything to help. If I hear anything more, I'll let you know. I'll keep checking Russian news sources because they obviously have a different take on it, so we'll see what they say. Anywho, I appreciate you hanging out with me this, well, night when I'm recording it, whenever you're listening to it. I'm gonna go get some rest, guys. This is Misha. Get you very soon. Next time.